I am joined by Trevor Stuart-Hill, founder and president of Revenue Matters, coming to us from Denver, Colorado.
Hi,
How are you?
Jason. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So let's talk about revenue management function. You have hotels that have no history of the function at all, and then you have some that with an established practice. But first, for the hotels with no history, what can they expect if they continue to operate without a revenue management function?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's evolved over the course of the years, but I liken it to the fall of the Roman Empire. And what I mean by that is, the Roman Empire didn't fall overnight. They just lost 100 points in market share over 100 years. So
Yeah,
if you think about a property that's not practicing revenue management, they're going to ebb and flow as the demand ebbs and flows in their local marketplace to some extent, but slowly but surely that share is going to continue to erode over the course of time.
yeah, and so getting in that pool, right? I mean that's a lot to consider. So how do they dip their toe in that water? How do they get started?
Yeah. Well, this is going to sound really self-serving. So I would say, connect with a company like SHR or Revenue Matters. We provide, revenue management for hire or coaching services, and just learn the trade from the inside out. Best to identify somebody at the property who might be well suited for the role, and then have them work along as a mentee and work with a mentor to help groom them and get them to the next level. I think that's probably the most effective way to go. But if you're looking at stepping into that pool now, given our current circumstance, I would suggest that you want to have professionals at the helm, and learn as quickly as you can. I think you're not going to have the luxury of taking a lot of time to learn in this environment.
Is there a scenario where they might hire one of these revenue managers, a lot of them on the street, and that, and do they just work with spreadsheets, or do they start looking at revenue management systems?
Yeah, good. Yeah, for the newer properties, they're just dipping their toes into revenue management. I think the answer around technology is it depends, and it depends on a couple things. Number one is culture, right? So, do you have a culture that's embracing revenue management principles? Do you trust some of the recommendations that are being put forth? Do you understand the fundamentals behind those recommendations? And are you culturally willing to allow revenue management to take its rightful place in the organization? If the answer is no, then technology is probably not going to be your first step. I would suggest starting with human resources and human capital before moving into technology.
Yeah. So how about the established practices within hotels? Like what? Their world's been turned upside down. I mean, they're really challenged. They've had to change and adapt. And I think a lot of them seem to be adapting, but talk to us a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, so I think obviously this year has been a huge shock to the industry, just like other shocks that I've lived through in my 30 years doing revenue management type work. But this one has been, I'm not going to use the word unprecedented because it's overused, but but that's the word, unfortunately,
But it's
that
damn
comes
close.
to mind here. But I mean, completely different circumstances that we're facing at this point. So I think coming back to your fundamentals and just making sure that your blocking and tackling is in place is going to be really an important foundational element. And then be light on your feet. Look for opportunities. Look for trends that are beginning to emerge, and then respond to those perhaps much more rapidly than you have in the past.
What would be a good, or what would be a trend that most of us are going to see Q1?
Here's what who pull out your crystal ball, right? But I honestly think that even within the month of January, I think we're going to start to see increased velocity and booking activity as the vaccine starts to make its rounds, and as treatments are becoming a little bit more um, uh, pungent, I guess is the right word. Then people are going to have a little more confidence to book a little further out. So I think increased velocity and booking volume starting I would say the second week of January. I'd say a little longer booking windows. So as we start to look into the spring and summer months, we're going to start to see some additional activity there. I think potentially even as we move towards the latter half of Q1, seeing some increased interest in larger group gatherings in Q3 and Q4 in certain markets as well. So there's going to be some real shifts happening compared to what we've been experiencing over the last 12 months or so. And one of the biggest challenges that I think we as an industry generally face from the sales side, on the revenue management side, on the marketing side is to read the tea leaves, identify those trends more rapidly, and be able to put programs in place and pricing in place and what have you that are going to allow you to capitalize on those upswings. Because the environment that we're in right now is very different from the environment we're likely to be heading into in the second half, in my view.
Yeah. So here's one. I was reading Allie Northfield's report based on a bunch of data that she had been gathering last year, and you had a few things in there, and a lot of other people did. Revenue managers. One thing that caught my mind was revenue managers are really coming alongside and helping generate stimulating demand.
Yep.
While thinking about profit, more than ever, but really coming alongside the other departments to stimulating demand. I mean, are you seeing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a trend that, I mean, if you think about how revenue management started, it was very much a reactive type of discipline, and you had those two levers of price and duration to try and manipulate the existing demand that was out there. I think, over the last 12 months or so, that approach just will fall flat on its face. It's just not going to work. So it forced the industry to consider moving from revenue management, which is a term that is outdated in my opinion, to revenue strategy, and to your point, in more of an integrated revenue strategy where you've got the discipline of revenue management, distribution, marketing services, supported by technology with a view towards profit. And that's sort of the next generation of where I think revenue strategy is heading towards. And I think those practitioners that understand that and are moving in that direction are the ones who are going to thrive in this next environment.
Any final words, advice for hoteliers as we continue through the pandemic, but in a new year?
Yeah, no, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think focusing on the fundamentals is going to be really important. I used to teach skiing when I was younger, and sounds strange, but we had a national ski team coach work with us, and the very first thing we did is all went down to the beginner's hill, and and we focused on our fundamentals and our fundamental techniques before we went back up on the slope. When I go skiing now, I'll do the same thing. I'll keep my boots unbuckled and I'll ski on one ski for a while and ski on another ski for another while, and it's all about making sure that my foundation and my fundamentals are sound before I start buckling up my boots and going for it. And I think the same thing would apply in revenue management practice. Just make sure that your fundamentals are sound, but don't rely just on your fundamentals. You have to get to the next level and start looking for opportunities as they emerge.
All right, that's some good advice. Revenue managers in 2021 need to go skiing.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Well, thank you for joining me, Trevor.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate your time.
You bet.